Greetings YouTube and welcome to the Blue Corner into a Card by Vanguard discussion video. Vermillion has finally dropped for standard and he's actually pretty decent, which is a bit of a surprise. I was expecting him to be just, attack the front row and have like mid as health effects for the rest of the cards, but no, we actually have some decent cards around. And as a result, the Narukami encounter for D format is well, it has a actually solid base. Is it meta? No, not quite. It's still missing some stuff in order to be a meta deck, but you have at least a decent aggro deck that has a couple good applications against some of the meta decks going into this set. And yeah, unfortunately, Dragon Empire itself is very lacking in good generic cards that the mini decks in it can play. Uh, just look again, Diva, and how it's built pretty much entirely out of its own set. There aren't very many generic Dragon Empire cards you play, and that's pretty much the case for Vermillion as well. You're just going to be maxing out on the Narukami named cards and maybe playing the discard one to Soul Blast draw a cycler thing or whatever. We'll see. Hopefully, they will put one or two more cards for the encounter line in here, like Dusty Plasma Dragon or I don't know, the Gunners. Anyway, yeah, we'll just go over this and I'll give you my thoughts along the way. I will say that I pretty much predicted every single card in this ride line and the supporting cards except for one, and I was not expecting to there be an order for this ride line, but otherwise, all the cards in here were exactly as I expected. So, Red River Dragoon as the starter, the grade 1 for the ride line. No, Spark Kid Dragoon is the starter, and this is easily his best art too, which is pretty impressive considering that his V series art was really good too. Then the grade 1 for the ride line is Red River Dragoon. When this unit is rode upon by a grade 2 with only Narukami in its clan, you may search your deck for an eternal Thunderbolt, reveal it, and shuffle your deck. And then when he boosts on Rearguard Circle, if you have a grade 3 or greater Vanguard with only Narukami in its clan, you can counterblast 1 to choose one of your opponent's back row rear guards and bind it, and if you did not bind, you may soul charge 2. It finally took until 2023 for Naros to get spot back row binding. Oh wow. Think about it. Like for like 5 years, we have never been able to pick off back row units with bind effects. It's only been front row units, or you've had to pull things up from the back to the front. But hey, we finally got there. And the Soul Charge 2 seems random until you realize what this deck's main push play is. And it involves using a lot of Soul. So we have at least an in-house way of building up Soul. Thunderstorm Dragoon, grade 2 of the red line. And that's pretty good art. These will look very nice as frame rares. So, Thunderstorm Dragoon. When this unit is rode upon by a grade 3 with only Narukami for its clan, look at the top 7 cards of your deck, choose up to 1 card with only Narukami for its clan or an Eternal Thunderbolt from among them, and add it to your hand, shuffle your deck. And then when it is placed on Rearguard Circle, if you have only a Vanguard with Narukami for its clan, Soul Charge 1, and he gets 5k until end of turn. So 15k attacker. Yeah, it's just basically V-Series Thunderbolt Dragoon, but better. And then the boy himself, Dragonic Kaiser Vermillion. This will look very nice as SP in double frame rare or whatever it comes in. We might even get the Vanguard Zero ranked reward art as a secret rare, just as they did for Maelstrom and Lukier. Anyway, so Vermillion. His skill is once per turn, kind of as 1. Choose 2 of your rear guards with only Narukami for their clan, and they get 5k until end of turn. Also, until the end of the turn, when this unit would attack, you can choose 2 of your opponent's rearguard circles, and this unit battles all of the units on the chosen circles and Vanguard in one attack. So, okay. And then Vanguard once per turn, at the end of the battle, this unit attacked. If you played a normal order during this turn, and your opponent has 4 or less damage, you can discard a card and ping them. That is interesting. Of all the things I expected them to do for Vermillion, this was definitely not it. And I mean, I like it though. So, Vermillion is basically a mixture of himself and Big Bang Knuckle Buster in that you get to battle multiple units, but instead of it being strictly the front row, Vermillion can attack any 2 rear guards in addition to the Vanguard, and that's really cool. He's basically VMAX. Oh my god, he is VMAX. He's VMAX if you've already gone into a Buster or Voltage first, then yeah, you just attack, swing of the Vanguard, battle 2 units, and then you deal damage at the end of the battle. Oh my lord. VMAX returns to standard. Uh, the fact is, he does give you 2 of your units 5k as well in case you can't battle everything, but being able to selectively battle multiple units in one attack's really good in this format, as one of the top decks, Ava, is notorious for having rear guards that are really hard to get rid of, and Vermillion answers them. And then Vermillion can also close the gap in damage if your opponents heal down or anything by dealing them a damage. It does trigger damage checks, which could lead to some unfortunate things like them flipping the over trigger, but uh, you're not going to be doing this after the first couple turns anyway, so he's kind of like a soft crit of sorts, and yeah, it's not bad. Now, unfortunately, Vermillion himself isn't really a good way to close out games, so you'll be relying on your rear guards to do that, and that's where the issue of how this deck will or will not be meta is that it doesn't really have like a strong kill play outside of a little bit of RNG, and we'll see that in a bit. But as far as this order card that keeps coming up, Eternal Thunderbolt, this is one of the better custom orders I've seen. So you can play this card from your drop zone in addition to being able to play it from your hand. So you basically have 8 copies of this card. You can only play this card if you have a Vermillion named Vanguard, and that it only has Narukami for its clan. Choose one of your Vanguards, and then it gets continuous Vanguard Circle. If your opponent's rearguard would be retired from rearguard circle by being hit with this unit, you bind it instead. And continuous Vanguard Circle, if your opponent has no rearguards, all of your front row rearguards plus 5,000 power. If you activate this card from your drop zone, it is bound instead. Yeah, pretty cool. It gives Vermillion the same effect as what's his face, the grade 2 from the V Clan series collection, the one that sacked itself so that uh, if your Vermillion hit something, it was bound. So this turns Vermillion's ability to battle multiple units into binding units afterwards, which is good, and it also gives your ability to scale your front row if you clear out your opponent's board, and there is an incentive for that down below. Yeah, not really much to say. Furthermore, though, this artwork is ridiculous. Like, I've always wanted to see like more art of Vermillion actually like doing stuff outside of just being like in like a typical Vanguard art, because I've always thought the Vermillion has a really nice design, and this proves it. Like, this is some sick ass shit. This is why I like Thunder Dragons as a concept, because they always just look so awesome. Anyway, look, guess who else is back? Rising Phoenix. So, auto drop zone. When either player's card is bound by your card's effect during your turn, and you have a Vanguard with only Narukami for its clan, cost Soul Blast 1, call it to Rearguard Circle, and then on Rearguard Circle you can retire it to choose one of your units and gets 5,000 power until end of turn. So, yeah, it's a watered down version of the V series version of Rising Phoenix, due to the fact that he has a Soul Blast cost now, and he doesn't get power himself. But it does work when anything is bound, and that's important because just like before in V series, your main way of going to pushing your opponent in will be getting multiple attacks in with Rising Phoenix and trying to like kill them off of that. So what I'm seeing here is you're going to have Phoenix in drop zone. You're going to play Eternal Thunderbolt so that when Vermillion attacks the units and binds them off of that way, Rising Phoenix will then Soul Blast to call themselves out from drop zone. If your opponent has no rear guards, then they'll be at 13. But this is mostly going to be a Persona Ride turn, so they'll be calling the Rising Phoenixes up to the front row, where they will be 18,000 power. So you go rear guard, Vermillion swing at the 2 back row units most likely. If your opponent doesn't, unless your opponent has rear guards in the front row that they can't intercept with, and then those 2 cards will get bound. You call the 2 Rising Phoenix to the front, and you swing with those 2 guys. So it'll cost soul as well, which is why cards like Red River Dragoon and Thunderstorm Dragoon are important. And it could be a little high rolly, but that's going to be how you close games out with this deck for now. Like I said, For all we know, they'll print a promo that's basically V Series Cho-Oh, and then, we're off to the races. And then lastly, we have Dragonic Death Scythe, and again, sick ass art. This is definitely the best that Death Scythe has looked in a good while. I was never really a fan of his V Series art. There was just something about it that put me off, and I liked the OG series art more. But this though, this is nice. So what does Scythe do? He is during your turn, if your opponent has no front or rear guards, plus 5,000, so it's a 15k attacker. And then when he attacks a Vanguard, you have a grade 3 or greater Vanguard with only Narukami for its clan. Soul Blast 2, choose one of your opponent's rear guards and bind it. If you did not bind, you draw a card. This card's fantastic. Soul Blast 2 is heavy, but yeah, it's basically, what's his name? Voltage Horn Dragon from V Series, except way better because you get to draw if you can't bind anything, which, you know what, that's great. Narukami gets card draw if it's not able to bind cards. Looks like they took a couple pages from the Gandiva playbook, but yeah, so as far as like an actual list I'm seeing here, you're basically maxing out on a lot of these cards, especially this, because one copy is 2. You'll probably also play the Chalice order, as it's a normal order and it gives you Persona Ride, which this deck is going to need in order to push with Rising Phoenix. Soul management will definitely be an issue because you got a Soul Blast 2 here, this guy Soul Blasts, and like the really greedy Rising Phoenix play will likely eat up anywhere between 5 to 7 soul, and that's assuming you're able, if you have Death Ice out, because how would you make that work? You would go swing Rearguard, swing Death Scythe, Soul Blast 2, bind something, call Rising Phoenix, swing with Rising Phoenix, swing with Vermillion, bind 2 more cards, call Rising Phoenixes. Yeah, that could definitely be a thing. Uh, yeah, it'll take a bit to figure out like an ideal list for this, but all in all, I'm pretty impressed with what they've done. I was expecting the actual worst because uh, Bushiroad again isn't really that consistent when it comes to making Vermillion a decent deck. Generally speaking, Bushiroad is really only good at making Vanquisher good, from what I've noticed. Eradicators have been kind of hit or miss too. They've gotten better with it with Super Command Dragon, but yeah, this is not a bad start, and I fully expect there to be another wave featuring the Blood and the remaining cards in that set. So Dusty Plasma Dragon and maybe I don't know what other support cards you could really put in aside from Dusty Plasma, but I'm sure the Gunners too. Uh, what else is there I can really say? As far as triggers go, uh, you'll definitely play draws. You're gonna want to see draws in order to get to your pieces because this does seem like a bit of a piece deck. You want to get to your Rising Phoenixes so you can put them in the drops. What else is there? And then I think you just max out on crits. Yeah, I think you do because fronts don't really do you a lot of good, given that Vermillion's effect. The Vermillion plus Eternal Thunderbolt combo binds your opponent's rear guards after the battle, so after you flipped fronts. So at least you can, if you flip crits, you can stack them on the back row boosters as far as the power gain goes. And I doesn't need it. Well, I guess it should be mentioned that the Dragon Empire Overtrigger with Vermillion is hilarious because then you get to battle the Vanguard and another pair of units and bind them, and you get to call the Rising Phoenixes out again. So, yeah, you definitely play the Dragon Empire Overtrigger just for that potential restand. And that's all I really got to say about this. So I hope you guys enjoyed this analysis, and until next time, this is Boostar899, jacking out.